Om Ajnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Dhena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Tasmadikena Manasa Bhagavan Sattvatam Pati Shotavya Kirtitavyascha Dhyaya Pujascha Nityada. So I'm reading the first 5 verses in the 7th canto, chapter number 6. This is Prahlad Maharaj instructing his demoniac schoolmates. So he took the chance, the opportunity, every time the teachers would leave the students alone, especially for tiffin hours, the lunch break, recess, that he would gather them around and he would give this Bhagavat philosophy so that they could be saved from the mundane education that they were receiving. So here's the first verse that he gives. This is 761. Shriparad Uvacha Komara Acharet Pragno Dharman Bhagavataniha Dulabam Manusham Janma Tadapya Dhruvam Artadam. Prahlad Maharaj said, one who is sufficiently intelligent should use the human form of body from the very beginning of life, in other words, from the tender age of childhood, to practice the activities of devotional service, giving up all other engagements. The human body is most rarely achieved, and although temporary like other bodies, it is meaningful because in human life one can perform devotional service. Even a slight amount of sincere devotional service can give one complete perfection. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The whole purpose of Vedic civilization and of reading the Vedas is to attain the perfect stage of devotional service in the human form of life. Is everyone alive and kicking in there? Internet is down. We're finished. According to the Vedic system, therefore, from the very beginning of life, the brahmachari system is introduced so that is it a Russian attack or is it something from our side? That means it was a Russian attack. Purport. The whole purpose of Vedic civilization and of reading the Vedas is to attain the perfect stage of devotional service in the human form of life. According to the Vedic system, therefore, the very beginning of life, the brahmacharya system is introduced so that from one's very childhood, from the age of 5 years, one can practice modifying one's human activities so as to engage perfectly in devotional service. Modifying. That's a very interesting point, hey? The practice modifying. What are we modifying? One's human activities. So one can be a human in various modes, in the mode of goodness, passion, or ignorance, or one can act transcendentally. And the exciting aspect of being a human is that at any time you can decide to modify the mode that you're in. And whatever mode that may be, there are ways that one can take help and begin the journey of modification and coming to a higher level. Partiva dharano dhumas tasmaragnis trayimayaha tamasastura tasmat satvam yad brahmadarshanam. Verse number? Just guess. You know where it is. 1-2-24. 1-2-24 says that there are various modes of nature. Some are more useful than others. The mode of ignorance, acting in the mode of ignorance, is not just a waste of time, as is the Rajagun, but it's very destructive. It's hard to climb out of that mode, and it leaves a lot of damage. It's a destructive mode, tamas. And rajas is like smoke. It's very disturbing, but it doesn't serve any purpose. So the strum and drung, is that in your dictionary, strum and drung? Let's see if you can find it. Strum and drung, of the mode of a culture in the mode of passion, or a lifetime in the mode of passion, is very active, but like monkeys, they're active but foolish. They make a lot of noise and they shake a lot of trees, but they don't do a lot of good. And so if one's life is very, very active, but there's no progress towards spiritual knowledge, self-control, and so forth, then it's a kind of a waste of time. But from the mode of goodness, sattvam, yad, brahmadarshana, one can get an inkling about what is Brahman. And from that point, one can be very progressive and successful in one's life. So modification is really important. It's something that is actually, the human intelligence is meant to discern how to modify one's activities so that one can rise in due course of time. And a civilization or a lifetime that's organized around staying in the mode of passion and ignorance is a waste of the human intelligence. Strum and drung? Internet? Is it on, if you Google it, maybe. Strum and drung. Not strung. Try strung and drung. Strung and drung. S-T-R-U-N and drung. D-R-U-N. I think it's German. It's there somewhere. And confirmed, maybe I'm spelling it wrong, and as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 240. Who knows this verse? Just from hearing the verse number. This should, when you hear 2.40, which you can get as a tattoo on your way home today, you should feel joy in your heart. Because in this verse, Krishna is saying that swalpamapya siddharmasya. If you just do a little bit of the right thing, it's permanent. And it's an asset that you'll keep and that will continue driving you. A Light of the Bhagavat, please. Do you have one? That's music for Light of the Bhagavat. Advertising. That's what you found? So 240, Krishna says that even if you do a little bit of devotional service, it's permanent. It's never lost. And it will help you overcome the greatest kind of fear, and that is totally wasting the human form of life. So this little bit of advancement in devotional service is mentioned in the Light of the Bhagavat. I had such an experience with this book. I mean, Prabhupada wrote this book, the manuscript for it, before he left, but it wasn't published. And some devotees found it after he left. And then I used to travel through Hong Kong every year on my way to India. I'd stop at the Hong Kong temple. It was just an apartment up on the 6th floor somewhere in a bunch of apartment buildings. But there was, regular temple in there, Gaurnitai and Tulsi Devi. But in any case, when I was passing through one year, this book was in production. Tamal Krishna Maharaj had taken it up, and he used to stay there in Hong Kong. And he commissioned a famous Chinese artist to do these paintings for this book. And they assembled the book there. So I had some help. They gave me some service in sorting out the pages, putting them together. But I just remember thinking about how Prabhupada had been so prolific when he was here, that there was even manuscripts available after he left that were to be published. And he wrote this book. Do you know why he wrote this book? Who knows the history? Why did he write it in the first place? Yeah? Parnam was the first. Paragurungi, go ahead.
I think in Nilamrita it said there was some conference in Japan.
Yeah.
And they had to present, according to the weather, like...
It was called Cultivation of the Human Spirit. And they invited Prabhupada and other spiritual teachers. Prabhupada didn't get to go. So that's why the manuscript never got used until after he left. Yeah. You found Strung and Drung? Good for you. How's it spelled?
It's called STURM and DRANG.
Strum and Drung. Okay, go ahead, tell us the meaning.
I just found it in the Wikipedia. It says storm and drive, though usually translated as storm and stress.
Yeah, Strung and Drung. It means like all the movings about in life that are very kind of frenetic and disturbing, right?
Yes.
Did you find another one?
Okay, so so here's the meaning is a late 18th century German literary movement characterized by works containing rousing action and high emotionalism that often deal with the individual's revolt against society.
Strum and Drung.
UND, STURM, UND, DRANG.
Strung and Drung.
Yeah.
Say it. Strung and Drung. Yeah, it means like a lot of activity and kind of high emotional state, Strung and Drung.
And the second is turmoil.
Huh?
The two meanings. The second is turmoil.
Turmoil. Strung and Drung. Turmoil. Literally?
It's a literary movement.
Literary movement. And now it's become a phrase as well, describing turmoil. Now you know what I'm talking about when I say strung and drung. Prabhupada writes, devotional service to the Lord never goes in vain. Just at the right moment, the result of one's particular devotional service will come, even if one has no desire for it. You want me to read that again? Yes. You're going to say what? Devotional service to the Lord never goes in vain. Just at the right moment, the result of one's particular devotional service will come, even if one has no desire for it. Feel better? Yes. The pure devotees do not wish any return from the Lord in exchange for their service, but they do not make business exchanges with the Lord, for the Lord out of his own accord fulfills all the desires of the devotees. And then later on in the purport, he writes, does Prabhupada, a devotee therefore should execute his devotional services with full energy, endurance, and confidence. Which three things? He should perform his scheduled duties, he should be pure in heart, and he should serve in the association of devotees. All six of these items will lead the devotee to the path of success. One should not be discouraged in the discharge of devotional service. Failures may not be detrimental. They may be the pillars of success. Yay. One must have good faith in the regulative principles followed by the self-realized souls, and one should not be doubtful about the ultimate result of such devotional service. Rather, one must go on executing his prescribed duties without hesitation, and one should never be influenced by unwanted association. That's very important. Don't be influenced by unwanted association. We should not consider going back to Godhead a plaything. We must take it seriously. As enjoined in the scriptures, for a strict follower, the result is sure and certain, and when the time is right, the result will come of its own force. When the time is right, the result will come of its own force. Hare Krishna. So, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 240, Swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat, Even a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. Modern civilization, not referring to the verdicts of Vedic literature, is so cruel to the members of human society that instead of teaching children to become brahmacharis, it teaches mothers to kill their children even in the womb on the plea of curbing the increase of population. And if by chance a child is saved, he is educated only for sense gratification. Gradually throughout the entire world, human society is losing interest in the perfection of life. Indeed, men are living like cats and dogs, spoiling the duration of their human lives by actually preparing to transmigrate again to the degraded species among 8,400,000 species of life. Sorry, Bhubaneswar is calling me from Vrindavan. The Krishna consciousness movement is anxious to serve human society by teaching people to perform devotional service, which can save a human being from being degraded again to animal life. As already stated by Prahlad Maharaj, Bhagavat Dharma consists of Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Bandhanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma Nivedanam. In all schools, what's the verse? Shri Vishnu Parikshit Abhavad. Find that number. And put it up. The Krishna consciousness movement is anxious to serve human society by teaching people to perform devotional service. And this verse that we just heard, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandhanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma Nivedanam, was spoken by Prahlad Maharaj. And the context in which it was spoken was that Hiranyakashipu had great hopes for his children, especially for Prahlad, and he had sent him to the best little demon school he could find. And when Prahlad came home, after some time being at boarding school, his father asked him, what's the best thing you've learned? And of course, the first time he asked that, Prahlad said, Na sarumanye suryavarev dehinam sana samudvignam Dhyam asadgrahat hidvat mapatam griyamanda kupam vanam gato yad dharamashriyeta. He said, O best of the demons, Asadamani, Asuryavarya means the best of demons. You're the best of demons, Daddy. Nasadamanye Suravari Dehinam Sarasamudvigna Dhyam asadgrahat Vatmapatam griyamanda kupam. Can you have her put it up? Put Nasadu Manye Suravari Dehinam. The first thing he told him, my dear father, he said, O best of the Asuras, king of the demons, as far as I've learned from my spiritual master, any person who has accepted a temporary body and temporary household life is certainly embarrassed by anxiety because of having fallen into a dark well where there is no water but only suffering. One should give up this position and go to the forest. More clearly, one should go to Vrindavan, where only Krishna consciousness is prevalent, and should thus take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Hiranyakashipu didn't like the answer. And he told the teachers, what are you doing? Well, you're teaching them the wrong thing. And they said, we didn't teach him anything like that. We don't know where he's getting it. They said, go back and try again. So they went back and tried extra hard to teach him all about the science of teaching political science and how to be a big politician. And so they brought him back the next time, and his father again said, so Prahlad, dear son, what's the best thing you've learned in school? Then Prahlad tells him this, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, which are the 9 processes of devotional service. And this is a very important verse. It delineates the direct methods of worshiping Krishna in the process of bhakti yoga. And there's an extremely important purport that goes with this verse. And one can study the purport if you're stranded on a desert island and you didn't have any other access to any verse or purport. If you had that one, you'd be able to practice devotional service. It tells you how to execute the 9 items of devotional service. very importantly. And, could I see that other verse? Shri Vishnur abhavad parikshit abhavad. Shri Vishnu Shravane Parikshit Abhavad Vaisesika Kirtane Pralada Smarane Dadangri Bhajane Lakshmi Pritu Pujane Akurasvavi Bandhane Kapipatir Daseta Sakyarjuna Sarvasvatmani Vedane Balirabhyut Krishnaptiresham Para. Here's the translation. Maharaj Parikshit attained the highest perfection, shelter at the Lord's lotus feet, simply by hearing about Lord Vishnu. Shukadeva Goswami attained perfection simply by reciting Srimad Bhagavatam. Prahlad Maharaj attained perfection by remembering the Lord. The goddess of fortune attained perfection by massaging the transcendental legs of Mahavishnu. Maharaj Prithu attained perfection by worshipping the deity. And Akrura attained perfection by offering prayers unto the Lord. Vrajangraji, Hanuman attained perfection by rendering service to Lord Ramachandra, and Arjuna attained perfection simply by being Krishna's friend. Bali Maharaj attained perfection by dedicating everything to the lotus feet of the Lord. So this verse is used again and again by our acharyas to show that any one of the 9 processes of devotional service, if concentrated upon, tasmade kina manasa bhagavan sattvatam bhati, you focus on that one thing and you perform that act of devotional service, you can attain perfection. And these are the examples given. So not that you have to do all of them, although there's examples given of Maharaj Ambarish. He performed all the items of devotional service practically simultaneously and continuously. So feel free. Where were we now? We are just after that, Shravana Kirtanam. In all the schools, colleges, and universities, and at home, all children and youths should be taught to hear about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In other words, they should be taught to hear the instructions of Bhagavad Gita, to put them into practice in their lives, and thus become strong in devotional service, free from fear of being degraded to animal life. Following Bhagavat Dharma has been made extremely easy in this age of Kali. The Shastra says, Harinama, Harinama, Harinameva Kevalam, Kalau Nasteva, 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 Gatiranyata. One need only chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Everyone engaged in the practice of chanting Hare Krishna, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, will be completely cleansed from the core of his heart and be saved from the cycle of birth and death. Namashreshtam manamapi sachiputramatra sarupam shirupam tasya grajam urupurim matarim goshtavatim radha kundam girivaramoho radhika madhavasham prapto yasya pratitikipaya shri gurum tam natosmi. And now we'll take some reflections or questions from this particular verse. Yes, Kautukarnika, the servant of the source of all entertainment.
Harish Maharaj, thank you for the class, Maharaj. I always think about this verse. Whenever I read this, it is mentioned that Durlabham Manusham Janma. Is he speaking to demons or humans? I mean, this demoniac schoolmates, I mean, people, they are demons, the sons of the demons, and he is referring to human birth is very rare. Are they of human species or
the demons?
The demons, yeah.
Yeah, they are. They're just demoniac nature. Yeah. But we find throughout the Bhagavatam that it doesn't matter which family one comes from. So many of the great devotees originated in so-called demoniac families. For instance, yes?
Maharaj, when Hiranyakashipu asked Lord Brahma about the boon, that he should not be killed by humans, he should not be killed by this and that, I think I was just understanding that means he is not a human. Hiranyakashipu is not a human, he's a Rakshasa or Asura, one of those, I don't know the differentiation.
Well, it doesn't mean just because he asks not to be killed by humans that he's not a human.
Okay, yeah.
But we had this discussion in another class recently. There's not, I haven't found in my research a lot of clear definition about what are the 400,000 species of human life. Other questions? A reflection, yes.
So two things, Maharaj, when we talked about modifying the life in the beginning of the purport, I looked up modify.
Modify.
The meaning of modify.
Please.
Yeah. And it said, but the main thing that struck me from the meaning was that it is meant for, like, modify is changing, but it is change for the better.
Change for the better. Modify
yeah.
means change for the better. How so? What's the etymology?
Okay, let me just go there and bring it up then.
Not to cause any unnecessary strung and drung in your life.
Yeah. So make partial or minor changes to something, typically so as to improve it or make it less extreme. And the origin is late Middle English from Old French modifier, from Latin modificare, and from modus. And it says go and look at mode.
Mode.
So I'm looking at mode. That also doesn't give. Mode means measure.
Like the modes of nature.
Yeah, yeah. It says measure. Mode means measure. Like how I think it's more like statistical term. It's giving like mean, median, mode, like that. Yeah. So on the change time, changing your life. I was thinking about how you often tell us that change the topic, change your life.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a modification of the topic.
Yeah, it's not so easy because if I develop a taste for hearing a certain kind of sound vibration, then my ear will gravitate towards that. And Prahlad Maharaj says this in his prayers to Lord Nrsingadev. Get that? You get it in the book. It's 7-9 something. He's 7-9 something. Prahlad Maharaj says that all my senses are attracted to various sense objects, and he says my sense of hearing is attracted to hearing cinema songs. Right? So this is you can find it. This is a problem because although I may know the right thing, I may know what I should be listening to, my ear says otherwise and says, no, you listen to this because I have a taste for this. Oh, look at that. You found it. Well done. This verse is 7:9-40. Jivaikato chuta vikarshati mavratripta shishnunyatastödurom shravanam kutaschit granunyataschapaladrik kwachakarma shaktir bhava sapatna iva geha patim vananti. My dear Lord, O infallible, in my positions like a person who has many wives, all trying to attract him in their own way. For example, the tongue is attracted to palatable dishes, the genitals to sex with an attractive woman, and the sense of touch to contact with soft things. The belly, although filled, still wants to eat more, and the ear, not attempting to hear about you, is generally attracted to cinema songs. The sense of smell is attracted to yet another side. The restless eyes are attracted to scenes of sense gratification, and the active senses are attracted elsewhere. In this way, I am certainly embarrassed. So starting from that position, modification, and directing one's ears towards a particular topic may be like rehab. In rehab, you have to do exercises that the body doesn't want to do because it's gotten used to doing it another way because of some injury or something. And you have to get a trainer to help you exercise those parts of your body that have atrophied because of non-use, because of injury or some other reason. Or if somebody becomes addicted to the mode of ignorance, like through intoxication, it's very popular nowadays for people to have to go to rehab. get back to their normal chemistry in their body and get their mind unattached to substances and so forth. So when one's addicted to the various modes of material nature, one may come to a realization through one's intelligence of what's the right thing to do. Does it mean necessarily that you'll be able to do it, even though you know what's the right thing? What is your opinion? I'm seriously asking. Can you just do it right away? So it might require some modification, which means by degrees one will have to rehab and start a program through which one gradually comes to the right point. Other reflections or questions? Yes, Monisha, and then Avantika.
You had mentioned how in the purport it was saying how within time, like, the results will come. And so I thought that was really nice, because even in the Ishopanishad it mentions how Krishna has been fulfilling our desires since time immemorial. And like how you just mentioned about like addiction and how you can't just get rid of it like right away. If we were addicted to like devotional service and the holy name of the Lord, it's so much easier to be addicted to it and not like, even if we do like try to go away from it, we're so attached to it that we can't go away from it. And
that's a good idea. I like your philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
Become addicted to the holy name. There's no side effects. Nowadays, pharmaceuticals is a huge industry, and now you'll notice whenever pharmaceuticals advertise a new drug, they have to tell what all the side effects are. So they'll say like, it helps you get rid of asthma. And then like in a really soft voice, it'll go on like, it may cause dry mouth, it may cause dizziness, it may cause you to crash your car, it may cause you to break up all your relationships. You may develop leprosy and blah, blah, blah. It goes on for like 10 minutes and then it's like, but buy it! You know? Everything has a side effect in the material world. But if you get addicted to the holy name, there's no indication. It doesn't clash with anything else. Everything works. No bad effects. No bad side effects. Avantika and then Bharat.
I was thinking about how lucky we are to be in this body. Like even my dad was mentioning during the Japa circle. And another point from the purport was...
Why lucky to be in this body?
that we are able to inquire, like Atato Brahma Jigyasa. I was thinking about that. And then also, in the beginning of the first purport, it said humans are able to change their mode just by their activities. So I was thinking we should really take advantage.
Is that what it says? They can change their mode of
Yeah,
activities?
in that first one we read
Nice.
initially. And then I also like that one point from the Light of Bhagavat, which said, failures may not be detrimental, they can be the pillar of success.
Yes. Very helpful, isn't it? Yes, and Radhakripa Prabhu brought up about the fact that you may have a tongue, you may have a human body, but then there may be a point at which you can't use it. How frustrating is that? And especially if you knew you had an opportunity and you didn't take advantage of it. It could. So, meaning is, don't think I'll do it later. That's really what this verse is saying. Komara acharit pragno dharmam bhagavatam. He's telling his classmates, don't think you're going to take care of this when you're 20 or 30 or 50 or 90. Do it right now. You have full permission. In fact, the Shastra is saying, start now, even when you're Komar, when you're just a little child.
I just want to say that Manisha's point that like you can get addicted to Krishna very easily just reminded me of yesterday's class when we were reading like Radharani's like song to the bumblebee, and it was like even though she's trying to like forget Krishna, it's so hard for her to forget her that she keeps on talking about him.
Yeah, and the various stages of advancement in devotional service as described by the Madhurya Kadambini by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur indicate these kinds of attachments. So there's a way in which when one comes to the point of ruchi, it becomes because you have a taste for hearing Krishna Katha, it's very easy to bring your mind away from the material topics because you're so attached to hearing Krishna Katha. And then asakti means that's the next level, a thickening of faith and more intense attraction to Krishna. And at that point, it becomes very difficult to pull your mind away from Krishna Katha to attend to hearing worldly things, which may be necessary at some point. Do you see the difference? So there's a way in which the attraction becomes stronger and stronger and the addiction becomes more. Good point. Anything else? Yes. 1, 2, 3.
I just got reminded of one of the conversations where one person was very vehemently arguing that, and he was obviously devoted to astrology very much, that we are all robotically driven by law of karma and we do things based on our past, and that is it. That is, and I was surprised that there are people with this view, but he was very vehemently arguing. It's very heartening to know that we can modify our activities and get out of that in some ways.
So in one sense, this is true. Once you get a particular body, the body's going to have a certain inclination because of the modes. It's an accumulation of modes that I've acquired from my previous life. But it doesn't mean there's no wiggle room. There's always room to begin the process of devotional service through good association and a process that one can follow. An example that one of my godbrothers has given is that if you buy a ticket on an airplane for a certain destination, now you may have to go to that destination. So you get on the plane, but doesn't mean that while you're on the plane going to the destination, you can't make other arrangements. There's still freedom even as you're being carried from New York to Chicago, and it's like, well, that's my ticket. But you could make arrangements that when I get off the plane, then I'm going to fly back. Or, you could meet people on the plane and enter into a partnership. So many different ways in which we have, even as we're being carried by the law of karma from our previous lives, an opportunity to introduce the modification of our lives. And with devotional service, a little bit goes a long way. Other kinds of modification may be more difficult, but especially devotional service, because Krishna helps us from within the heart when we indicate that we want to surrender to Him. Who is next? Okay.
So I was thinking, like modification, it's like a constant practice. It doesn't end. Like you modified, you may again slip, or you can get better. So it's like constantly it should be our, we have to practice that, like always we have to try to modify so that we can achieve perfection.
Very true. And there's a purport coming up in just a minute or two that indicates a similar point. Niharika.
I was thinking today in the japa circle, the first few rounds I did, I wasn't trying to beg because my mind wasn't focused. But then I asked Krishna to help me get the desire, and then that helped. So I just connected that to how if we modify our chanting, we can ask Krishna he can help us modify our ways.
Good point.
And
one is, yes, go ahead.
And Krishna's always fulfilling our desire.
Do you have besides fulfilling all your desires, you can quote that verse from the Sri Upanishad, but also quote from the Bhagavatam about how Krishna helps from within. Can you quote those two verses? First one, Isha Upanishad, says how Krishna is fulfilling all desires. Yeah. Quote it.
The Isha one?
Say the Isha first.
Saparyayak chukramakayam avrinam ashnaviram shuddhama papavidam kavirmanichi paribu swayambur yatatatyato ridanvedak chasvatibhya samabhyaha.
Means?
It means that Krishna it describes his qualities first, how he's omniscient, without veins, beyond reproach, and then it talks about how Krishna is fulfilling everyone's desire since time immemorial.
Yes. And how about the Bhagavatam, where it says that Krishna helps the sincere devotee who's practicing devotional service? Because that's really important. It may be difficult for me to modify my activities, but if I take help from Krishna, He helps from within so that I can modify. So what's the quintessential verse in the Bhagavatam? There's a specific word used that describes how Krishna helps from within the heart. He helps to winnow out, look up that word too, winnow, W-I-N-N-O-W. Could somebody quote the verse? Srimad Bhagavatam. Go ahead. If you got it wrong, then go down in flames. Don't be hesitant. Give her the mic. It is. Lord Sri Krishna, who is the Paramatma, the super soul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who relishes his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. What is the verse? You are correct. That's the verse. Quote it.
Shrinvatam svakata Krishna punya shravana kirtana hridayantasto hi abhadrani vidunoti saritsatam.
And what is the word that is a name for Krishna that indicates that he helps from within the heart to sort things out? Yeah. See the word at the bottom, third word from the end?
Vidunoti.
Vidhunoti, everyone say. So Vidhunoti is a name for Krishna. This comes up at the beginning of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu also. Rupa Goswami points out that Krishna is the Vidhunoti. It means that he's very active in the heart of the bhakta to sort out the chaff from the actual fruit of the grain. Yes?
The same word comes in that another verse, right? That Pravishta Karnarandrena.
That's right. Go ahead, quote it.
Pravishta Karnarandrena svanam bhava saroruham dhunoti shamalam krishnaha salilasya yatha sharat. And the translation is, the sound incarnation of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Soul, that is Srimad Bhagavatam, enters into the heart of a self-realized devotee, sits on the lotus flower of his loving relationship, and thus cleanses the dust of material association, such as lust, anger, and hankering. Thus it acts like autumnal rains upon pools of muddy water.
Very good. Krishna can sort everything out. He has the power to do so. And so in bhakti we depend on Krishna. We beg Krishna for his help, and he's there within the heart. He helps the sincere devotee who applies him or herself to hearing about him. Then Krishna takes action within the heart and helps to sort out the material desires from the real desires. Yes.
I was also thinking of 9:22, Ananyas Chintayanta Mam. It also mentions how he carries what they lack. So that could also be used.
This verse 9:22 in the Bhagavad Gita, Ananyas Chintayanto Mam Ye Jana Pariyupasate Tesham Nityabdi Yuktanam Yogakshemam Mahamyaham. Translation is, but those who always worship me with exclusive devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack and I preserve what they have. Very well done. Yes. Yes.
Also in the Chaturshloki Bhagavatam he says, Tesham eva anukampartam aham ajnanajam tama nashashyami atma.
From the Bhagavad Gita.
From the Bhagavad Gita.
And go ahead, say the verse. What does it mean?
So basically it means that those who are dedicated to Krishna, then from within the hearts he destroys the nations using the shining lamp of knowledge.
Yeah. So he uses this metaphor that I'm like a lamp in your heart, and when you apply yourself in devotional service, he'll say, I'll illuminate your heart so you can see what's going on in there, and I'll give you the wherewithal to move forward in devotional service. Very encouraging, right? And Radhakripa Prabhu for the last word on this verse.
So Maharaj, my reflection is actually from yesterday when you're talking about the planets. We need to bring the Krishna planet in the center to have all things which is auspicious. I always had a strong belief that if all the planets who are subservient of Krishna, if they are performing some tasks, but then the master is there, they have to set aside and then, do what Krishna wanted to do. So that faith, I think in the astrology, when we always sometimes get weak, my planet is this dasha is not going good and all that. I think your yesterday's lecture confirms that my belief. It really helped me a lot.
Absolutely. Now, there's all kinds of ideas for how to protect oneself in this material world, how to stave off any ill fortune, right? Yes. Like you might get jewels and decorate your body and you might pay a lot of money to get a jewel, right? To make sure that this particular planet is propitiated, or somebody like, Rahu doesn't come knocking at your door. You don't want Shani coming around, right? So there's all these ideas, especially in this age of Kali Yuga. If you chant the holy names and you take shelter of Krishna, then this is your protection. The main protection is, it doesn't come from any other kind of arrangement. One sweltering night in Vrindavan, I was sitting at Sriji's. You know Sriji's? Sriji's Jewelers? Yeah, Sriji's Jewelers. It's a little, actually kind of big now, jewelry shop. It's been there forever, ever since I've been going to Vrindavan. And you can go in there and buy all kinds of stuff for your deities. And so I was sitting in there. Sometimes it takes a while because it gets really busy and you have to sit there and wait for them to bring stuff out for you. So I was sitting there with a friend of mine, and then another devotee came in and he had some jewels that he wanted to sell to Sriji. I think it was as a European devotee. He had some nice semi-precious stones that were for astrological use. And then an old friend, a senior godbrother of mine, just happened to be walking down the street. He was probably coming from seeing Radha Damodar temple. And he stopped and looked in, and he asked this other devotee, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Oh, I'm just going to sell these jewels to Sriji." And so my friend said, "Let me see them." So he's looking at him and goes, "Really nice." And then he pretended like he swallowed one. And the devotee, "What?" He said, "No, I didn't do it." And he goes, "Here, you take them." He said, "They don't work anyway. Only the holy name works in Kali Yuga." And then he walked off into the night. It's kind of the nature of that godbrother. But it left an impression upon me that this is one of the ways that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu emphasized the holy name, that Harinama, Harinama, Harinama eva kevalam. Nothing else works, nothing else works, nothing else works. Just the holy name. So it's very heartening to know that if you just take shelter in this one thing, improve your japa, then everything else in your life will improve. Because vidunoti, Krishna will notice that you're trying to chant better japa. And it doesn't mean that all of a sudden you have to become perfect at it. But if you do make an effort, then Krishna will notice it. And he'll bring auspicity into your life in the form of impetus to do better devotional service in all areas of your life if you do better japa. Because the holy name is everything. Kalim sabhajiyantyeta. Yes, Nicole.
Hare Krishna. One of the 10 offenses says that if you commit an offense or a sin and then you return to chanting with this idea that, oh, it's okay, I can do this, what happens if you consistently keep messing up on the things that you're asking Krishna for help with, but you still have to return to japa, you have to return to it? Is it like kind of like standing in front of like a fire hose, and it's like, if I stand here long enough, eventually I'll get clean? Or is it?
Yeah, so much depends on our intention. So the Padma Purana says, Nama parada yuktanam namanyeva harantyagam avishrani prayuktani name varta karani cha. Interestingly, this verse says if you're a nama paradi, you're committing offenses while chanting. The way to stop those offenses or to overcome them is to continue chanting. Don't stop. However, the seventh offense that you mentioned, committing sins on the strength of chanting the holy name, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur mentions in his commentary to the 6th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam on the subject of Ajamil. He says that this offense is a little bit onerous in the sense that if your intention is wrong and you're taking advantage of the holy name, and you have this attitude that it doesn't matter what I do because if I chant, it'll make up for it. Then he says that the continuous chanting will be difficult for you. He said you'll actually have to suffer in some other way to get purified. But one of the ways it's mentioned by Haridas Thakur that Krishna helps to rectify the sincere devotee is that he said just like if you work for a merchant and then you start to take your job for granted. So you show up late every day. And then one day you come and the merchant locks the door and says, no, you can't come in and work today. And you go, what are you talking about? I work here. And he says, not anymore. Go improve your attitude and come back. So in a similar way, sometimes Krishna will take away a devotee's taste from chanting if he or she is making offenses. And that should alarm the devotee and think like, how did that happen? Krishna took my taste away. I better try to get it back. And a sincere devotee will then, okay, I'll reform myself. I'll modify what I'm doing. I'll be more careful. Did that answer your question?
Yes, totally. Thank you.
Okay, good. I'm going to go to the next verse, which is 763, I believe. No, 2. The human form of life affords one a chance to return home back to Godhead. Therefore, every living entity, especially in the human form of life, must engage in devotional service to the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu. This devotional service is natural because Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the most beloved, the master of the soul, and the well-wisher of all living beings. Everyone okay? Yes. Better than okay, right? Purport. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 9:529, Bhoktaram yagyatapasam sarvalokam maheshwaram suradam sarvabhutanam yatva mam shantim vrichyati. The sages, knowing me as the ultimate purpose of all sacrifices and austerities, the supreme Lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attain peace from the pangs of material miseries. Simply by understanding these 3 facts, that the Supreme Lord Vishnu is the proprietor of the entire creation, that he is the best well-wishing friend of all living entities, and that he is the supreme enjoyer of everything, one becomes peaceful and happy. For this transcendental happiness, the living entity has wandered throughout the universe in different forms of life and different planetary systems, but because he has forgotten his intimate relationship with Vishnu, he has merely suffered life after life. Therefore, the educational system in the human form of life should be so perfect that one will understand his intimate relationship with God or Vishnu. Every living entity has an intimate relationship with God. One should therefore glorify the Lord in the adoration of Shanta Ras, or revive his eternal relationship with Vishnu as a servant in Dasya Ras, a friend in Sakya Ras, a parent in Vatsalya Ras, or a conjugal lover in Madhurya Ras. All these relationships are on the platform of love. Vishnu is the center of love for everyone, and therefore the duty of everyone is to engage in the loving service of the Lord, as stated by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavatam 3:25-38. Yesha maham priya atma sutushchas sakha guru surido daivam ishtam. In any form of life, we are related with Vishnu, who is the most beloved, the super soul, son, friend, and guru. Our eternal relationship with God can be revived in the human form of life, and that should be the goal of education. Indeed, that is the perfection of life and the perfection of education. In a class in Los Angeles, Prabhupada was speaking to a large assembly of devotees. And then he stopped and he said, all of you have ruchi. He said, because I come here every day and I give the class. And he said, practically I say the same thing every day. He said, but you still come and listen. He said, this means you have taste. You have real taste. So I was just thinking about that, about all of you. Because here we are. It was a late night last night, and what to speak of, it's been a string of festivals. You all have school, you have work, you have all kinds of things going on, but still, somehow or other, here you are. And that goes for those of you who are listening online too. This is ruchi, and this is what's being advocated here is show up for devotional service on a regular basis, despite the fact that there's so many other things going on in life, and run out the clock on the field, because the game of life is going on. I think Radhakripa Prabhu today, moved all of us by his description of how time is inexorable, it continues its march forward whether we're noticing or not. And if somehow or other we get in the habit of hearing about Krishna, being close to the katha and the other practices, then we'll notice, 10 years just went by. I was talking to Keshvari last night, I believe, and she was saying that it was 11-year anniversary here for initiation, and I thought back, that was 11 years ago we sat for her initiation. All the Ishri sisters were there. And there it is, a chunk of time, a decade has gone by in devotional service. If you can string together like 6 or 7 of those decades, and they do go by quickly, then you have what's called a successful human life. I mean, Prabhupada says in the story of the Prachetas, out of 100,000 years was what the duration of life was, expectancy back then. You can imagine the insurance rates for the actuary tables. They gave 10,000 years in their austerities. And Prabhupada said if somebody's able to give 10% of their life energy for practicing Krishna consciousness, then practically there'll be a success. So this investment that you're all making with your time is laudable. Text number 3, Sukham Aindriyakam Daitya. You have to be able to read Devanagari. Deha Yogin Dehinam Savatra Labhyate Daivad Yathatukam Ayatnataha. This is Prahlad Maharaj speaking. My dear friends born of demoniac families, the happiness perceived with reference to the sense objects by contact with the body can be obtained in any form of life according to one's past fruit of activities. Such happiness is automatically obtained without endeavor, just as we obtain distress. This is kind of touching closely to this subtlety of understanding what comes automatically and what we can do with our independent nature at the same time. But what's just being described here is a certain amount of happiness and distress is going to come your way anyway on the material side, which is true. Purport, in the material world, in any form of life, there is some so-called happiness and so-called distress. No one invites distress in order to suffer, but still it comes. Similarly, even if we do not endeavor to obtain the advantages of material happiness, we shall obtain them automatically. This happiness and distress are obtainable in any form of life without endeavor. Thus, there is no need to waste time and energy fighting against distress or working very hard for happiness. Our only business in the human form of life should be to revive our relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead and thus become qualified to return home back to Godhead. Material happiness and distress come as soon as we accept the material body, regardless of what form. We cannot avoid such happiness and distress under any circumstances. The best use of human life, therefore, lies in reviving our relationship with the Supreme Lord Vishnu. Everyone who thinks this is a good idea, say Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Okay, text number 4. Tat prayaso nakartavyo yata ayur vayaparam natata vindate kshemam mukunda charanambujam. Yeah, that's nice. Mukunda charanambujam means that Mukunda, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who can deliver one from material clutches, charana ambujam, the lotus feet. Mukunda charanambujam. Translation, endeavors merely for sense gratification or material happiness through economic development are not to be performed, for they result only in a loss of time and energy, with no actual profit. If one's endeavors are directed toward Krishna consciousness, one can surely attain the spiritual platform of self-realization. There is no such benefit from engaging oneself in economic development. Correct. Purport, we see materialistic persons busily engaged in economic development all day and all night, trying to increase their material opulence, But even if we suppose that they get some benefit from such endeavors, that does not solve the real problem of their lives, nor do they know what the real problem of life is. This is due to a lack of spiritual education. Especially in the present age, every man is in darkness in the bodily conception of life, not knowing anything of the spirit soul and its needs. Misguided by the blind leaders of society, people consider the body to be everything, and they are engaged in trying to keep the body materially comfortable. Such a civilization is condemned because it does not lead humanity toward knowing the real goal of life. People are simply wasting time and the valuable gift of the human form because a human being who does not cultivate spiritual life but dies like the cats and dogs is degraded in his next life. From human life, such a person is put into the cycle of continuous birth and death. Thus one loses the true benefit of human life, which is to become Krishna conscious and solve life's problems. And the next verse is what I'm going to end on. Tato yateta kushala Shemaya bhavam ashritaha Shariram paurusham yavan Na vidpadyeta pushkalam. Pushkalam means stout and strong. Therefore, while in material existence, bhavam ashrita, a person fully competent to distinguish right from wrong must endeavor to achieve the highest goal of life as long as the body is pushkalam, stout and strong, and is not embarrassed by dwindling. Not embarrassed by dwindling. As we talked about this, you may have the intelligence to take advantage of the human form of life, but then you may not at some point have full facility to do so. Your physical ability of your body may be diminished to such a point that you can't actually fully enact the kinds of practices that you'd like to do, enough to get momentum in this lifetime. So really there's a sense of urgency in all these verses that take advantage while you do have the wherewithal to do it. Correct? Yes. Would you like to hear the purport? Yes. You would very much like to hear it, I think. Okay, here goes. As stated by Prahlad Maharaj at the beginning of this chapter, Kaumara Acharit Prajna. The word prajna refers to one who is experienced and who can distinguish right from wrong. What does prajna refer to? That's right, they're experienced. They know right from wrong. Such a person should not waste his energy and valuable human lifetime simply working like a cat or dog to develop his economic condition. For one word in this verse, there are two readings, bhavam ashrita and bhayam ashrita. But accepting the meaning of either of them will bring one to the same conclusion. Bhayam ashrita indicates that the materialistic way of life is always fearful because at every step there is danger. Materialistic life is full of anxieties and fears, bhayam. Similarly, accepting the reading bhavam ashrita, the word bhavam refers to unnecessary trouble and problems. For want of Krishna consciousness, one is put into bhavam, being perpetually embarrassed by birth, death, old age, and disease. Thus, one is surely full of all anxieties, known as bhavam. Human society should be divided into a social system of brahmanas, kshatriyas, vaishyas, and shudras, but everyone can engage in devotional service. If one wants to live without devotional service, his status as a brahmana, kshatriya, vaishya, or shudra certainly has no meaning. It is said, stana brashta patantyada. Whether one is in a higher or lower division, one certainly falls down for want of Krishna consciousness. A sane man, therefore, is always fearful of falling from his position. This is a regulative principle. One should not fall from his exalted position. The highest goal of life can be achieved as long as one's body is stout and strong, pushkalam. We should therefore live in such a way that we keep ourselves always healthy and strong in mind and intelligence, so that we can distinguish the goal of life from a life full of problems. I'm going to read that last sentence again, because it's just epically powerful. We should therefore live in such a way that we keep ourselves always healthy and strong in mind and intelligence, so that we can distinguish the goal of life from a life full of problems. A thoughtful man must act in this way, learning to distinguish right from wrong, and thus attain the goal of life. Reflections or questions? Just have a few minutes left. Yes, 1, 2.
I really felt that, especially these purports, felt like a counseling session, because Prabhupada feels like he's speaking to me, where everybody would feel the same, but so many practical solutions that Prabhupada is giving, it's
part of our
very
rehab.
personal.
We're in rehab here. In fact, I think we should change the name on our sign. It's like the Hare Krishna Rehab Center. What have you been up to lately? I'm in rehab. This whole life is a rehab. But this is definitely a rehab center, and hearing and understanding one's natural position is important, because it's so easy. Maya's tactic is to make me think I'm okay, and say, it's all good, and it's not. Actually, it's all bad, and I'm in a precarious situation. So, understanding it, and see Prabhupada's saying here, I underlined this in my book. A sane man, you have to be sane, therefore, is always fearful of falling from his position. So the minute you think I'm good, I'm okay, that's the time when you get, lax, and you start either by degrees or all at once. Manjari Gopika. And then we'll come back to you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, I have one reflection and one question.
Yes.
We were going through how human life, Prabhupada is mentioning in purport in the previous one also, how human life itself is so rare. And I was also thinking yesterday when you mentioned about how the Bhagavatams were destroyed, thousands of them, but we are so fortunate that we have the translation. So I'm thinking of how, getting this birth in a human body, and then also getting a chance, to get the original Bhagavatam translated. It's something to value it.
Yes, and the next level really is to develop spiritual strength. It means you have to work out. You have to develop your bhajan. It means you may have the Bhagavatam in your house, but if someone comes over 5 years later and opens it, and there's that cracking sound like it's the first time it ever opened, that's not a good sign. It should be well worn. We should develop a strength for hearing and chanting. The more we practice hearing and chanting, the more we develop a taste for it, and this is the way to recover spiritual health. And your question?
In the second last line, Prabhupada mentions that we should always, we should be healthy and strong in mind and intelligence. So, are there any, how do we keep that, be healthy and strong in mind and intelligence?
Yukta hara viharasya, yukta cheshtasya karmasu, yukta swapna babodasya, yogo bhavati dukkha. Krishna says, get enough sleep. You can't artificially cut back on your sleep and expect to make good decisions. I've seen it before. I've seen a lot of stuff, because growing up in the Krishna conscious movement, I saw devotees tried all kinds of things. We thought we were the 6 Goswamis for a while. Eat once a day, sleep 3 hours, and it was like, whoa. But you have to notice that the body is an apparatus, and you have to take care of it properly. So 3 things are vitally important. One is getting the right amount of sleep. Don't sleep too much and don't sleep too little. There's a lot of research on the brain now. You can't do without sleep. There's a lot of diseases that come from not sleeping enough. Unless you're a Paramahamsa and you're in the last stage of life, then you have full freedom to just not sleep at all. You can just do your bhajan constantly. But while you're a Paravajakacharya, you're just traveling everywhere, preaching and everything like that, you have to get enough sleep. in order to function, and also to chant. You ever try chanting when you don't have enough sleep? It's discouraging. You should be alert and be able to actually chant. So take time to go to bed early enough. That's important. The other thing that's really important is diet. If you if you load up on halava at 10 o'clock at night, the next morning you're still digesting. So be careful how you eat. Find out a diet that is suitable to your body. There's a lot of research into diet, and a lighter kind of diet is better, it's healthier. And eat stuff like vegetables and fruits and things like that are really healthy, have a lot of nutrients and things. And the third thing is exercise. You have to exercise, especially by dancing in kirtan. That's good exercise. And walking to holy places and so forth. But take the stairs, don't go on the elevator whenever you get a chance. I went up 20 flights of stairs the other day, because the elevator was, 3 of them weren't working, so we walked, and I was happy. Whenever I travel, I always take the stairs rather than the elevator, and try to go out of your way to keep the body moving. It's a machine. If it doesn't move properly, it's going to fall apart. And you also have to have a home base where you can be comfortable, because if you live in a place where you're uncomfortable all the time, you don't have psychological support and things like that, it's very difficult to practice Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada mentions these principles in the story of Gajendra, because he says Gajendra was an animal of the land, and he's stronger than a crocodile, but not in the water. And in the water, he got out of his element, and he lost his strength. So Prabhupada then relates that to our practice of Krishna consciousness, and says we have to find out a lifestyle that's natural to us, so we can maintain it over a long period of time. What you're trying to do here is rack up decades of practice, not like a year. And then all of a sudden, what happened to Bhakta Shnikki? He practiced for a year like he was a Paramahamsa, and then, he lost everything because he couldn't stay awake. And so try to get 1 decade after another on your resume by living a healthy enough life so that you can continue to practice devotional service without a lot of problems. Does that help? For the close, you've got the last point or question. And then there's one online, but depends if we have time or not.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Related to the 2 or 3 verses we just went over, if one does not follow the principles of like Krishna consciousness, right, then they degrade into the lower life, right? The question is, how does the lower life actually comes to the human life stage, and what do the scriptures say about it?
Scriptures say that we transmigrate upwards when we're in the lower forms. That means that there's a progression from the lower species of life, and each one comes to the next higher species until they get to the human form. And the human form, labvam sudurlabhavidam bahusambhavante manusyamartadam anitam apihadira, means it's a rare opportunity through which artadam, you can get the full value of spiritual life. From the lower species don't commit sins because there's no discretion there. They're simply compelled by their body to act the way they were fitted with the particular set of senses. But when you come to human life, that's when you're expected to do something smart. Animals, they're not judged like that. So they progress upwardly. Then in the human form of life, it's a junction. And if you don't perform it properly in the human life, then you can fall back down again into the lower species, and then you have to work your way back up again. Does that help? Okay, last one from the internet.
This is a question from Raseshwari Leela Mataji.
Really?
And she's saying, when we read the Srimad Bhagavatam, every story indicates that even a small misstep of offending anyone, even a neophyte devotee, brings a reaction. Very often, devotees in beginning of spiritual life think that they can ignore the laws of material nature because they are chanting the holy name. It seems to me, as devotees, We have to be extra careful not to offend anyone on purpose or without purpose. Just like we should follow traffic rules even though we may be chanting while driving. Can you please share how one can balance this? I may offend a demigod unknowingly and it may delay me in my spiritual progress.
Offend who?
Demigod.
Offend the demigods.
I may.
Well, the Shastra says, Devarshi bhutap nandrinam pitrinam nakin koronayam ranicha rajan sarvatmanaya sharanam sharanyam kato mukundam priharita kartam. Do you all know that verse? It says that there's a way in which we're indebted to demigods and other living entities when we're born. However, if you dedicate yourself fully to Krishna consciousness, you're no longer indebted to the demigods. And Krishna indicates in the 8th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita that although there are ways in which to cooperate with the devas and the various forces of material nature in order to elevate oneself when leaving the body, the devotees don't worry about that because they're taking full shelter of Krishna. So if one's sincerely doing one's best to surrender to Krishna in the process of devotional service, the demigods don't mind. And we should be careful to not offend any living entity because you don't know who people are. This is brought up in the story of Dhruva Maharaj. Dhruva Maharaj was just a kid, and nobody knew who that kid was. The father made an offense to his son by not giving him proper nurturing because his wife, the king's wife, was envious of Dhruva, and Dhruva was not her biological son. So because of her envy, the king took up that feeling of envy on behalf of the wife and didn't allow Dhruva to sit on the lap. And so later Dhruva became the celebrated pure devotee of the Lord. Am I correct or not? Yes. So then what happened was that wife of the king got burned in a forest fire, if I'm not incorrect, and so did her other son. And it's mentioned there that you don't know how a person may later on become a celebrated devotee. So you may just think, oh, that's just, Bhakti Shniki. But Bhakti Shniki may end up becoming, a great Paramahamsa. Of course, even if he doesn't, devotees should be careful. All devotees are exalted and are dear to Krishna. Apichet sudaracharo bhajate mamananyapak sadareva samantavya samyak vyavasitosa. Krishna says if they're engaged properly, you better respect them. So be careful. And also, you don't know who people are. They become the highest and greatest devotees, and if you offend them even beforehand, that's kind of carried forward. At the same time, don't get mental, because offense requires an atmosphere or an intention of malice. And just because you're moving around the world and you have interactions with other devotees and things, it doesn't mean that your devotional service is going to be ruined and that you're walking on eggshells or thin ice, vegetarian example. And any second, don't get weird like that. You do the best you can in the circumstance. If you happen to have an altercation with a devotee, then go apologize. You can go back and later the devotee will forgive you. It's not the end of the world, and it's not like cancels out everything you've ever done in devotional service just because you make a few mistakes. But definitely don't get on the internet and listen to nonsense about devotees, and definitely don't criticize them in writing, and that's easy enough to do, is to not get involved in that kind of pernicious way of criticizing devotees. Just unfriend the people who are doing that, and you never have to see them ever again in your life. That's one of the solutions. Now we've come to the end, and we have another very joyous celebration. Who knows what it's going to be, but it's going to take place right here, celebrating the teamwork that was done by the devotees who worked together to put on the Janmashtami celebration. If I'm not incorrect, now is the time. Hopefully some people come running out and tell us what to do next. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Prahlad Maharaj ki jai. Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Vanchakalpadrishcha Kripasinabhevacha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. And thank you to all the devotees who join us online from various places around the world. We definitely felt your presence today, and it means the world to us. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Nachariyar Marman, Nachariyar Marman, Nachariyar Marman, Nachariyar Marman, hey, Nachariyar Marman, Nachariyar Marman, Nachariyar Marman, Nachariyar Marman.